Hello and welcome everybody to the Click podcast. Hope you all are having fun at Eat Denver, and I know I'm hearing a lot about NFT Paris. We are having a major FOMO here for missing out these wonderful events, but we are sort of coping up with that by talking to interesting people and bringing you these wonderful episodes. So today we have a very different project that is not a DAO yet, but will be turning into a DAO. And to talk about that project, we have Anze Enoch from DIA DAO. Hello, Anze. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great. Doing great. Also, kind of not too happy not being at Denver, but we have our team members there. It's just that I live too far away to go there. So yeah, really nice to meet you. And happy to be here. Thank you for the invite.
So fantastic. It's great having you over here in this show. For people who've been constant supporters, this is going to be our 30th episode. For a small show that's kind of started since September, this is a good milestone for us to have, and really thankful that all of you has been kind of stuck around to support, the two of us. And thank you so much, Anze, for joining us on this small, but it's kind of a precious moment for the both of us that way. Um, so with that, we want to take forward, interesting topics that, push the boundaries of what's valuable for the DAO ecosystem in terms of insights. And the way in which DIA has kind of been building out its community and shaping up the pathways of decentralization for its project in a manner that's productive is pretty interesting for me to have. And I thought that would be a great conversation to have. And we have with us Anze, who's kind of leading growth as well as the whole decentralization and community building efforts over at DIA. And we will be just kind of talking about how that whole process is laid out, and how that's kind of impacted the broader DIA goals, and whether it's turned out to be better or not. But before we get into DIA, let's kind of dive into the man Anze himself. Anze, talk about your background and how did you kind of grow into becoming the lead over at DIA?
Yeah, sure. Thanks again for the intro. So my name is Anže Enoch. I come from Slovenia, a very small country in the, let's say, center east of Europe. My professional background comes from I have a degree from economics. My professional path started when I joined this online food delivery platform, the biggest one in Slovenia. Worked there for 5 years, learned a lot about digital marketing, business development, and community building. And then in 2016 or 2017, I decided to move to Shanghai, China, to study there, but also to look for work. And this is where the opportunity came, and this is where I kind of my first encounter with crypto came in, where I joined the team that was building a project on Neo blockchain. This was at the end of 2017, at the peak of the 2017 bull market. So I joined that team as a digital marketing manager. Basically, my role was to spread the word about the project, to build a non-Chinese community, but also to try out all these different growth hacking techniques, community engagement techniques, and so on. So after 2 years, I moved back to Slovenia. I did go back to my previous company where I worked as a COO, learning a lot more about the management roles and so on. But meanwhile, still kept personally investing time and money into crypto, learning about how it works, what are the important things to look out for in crypto. So I decided to kind of look for new opportunities, and this is where DIA came in. Basically, the recruiter found me. It was about a year ago. They were looking for someone to fill in a position of a community architect, and this is basically what I'm doing at DIA. And what does that mean? I'm basically in charge of the whole community aspect. but at the same time, I'm also a lead of DIA DAO. So maybe a bit later I can explain what DIA DAO is. But my role mainly evolves around marketing operations, building a marketing strategy, and basically everything surrounding the community at DIA.
I must say, to be kind of involved with working with crypto since 2017 is pretty lit, because even I was kind of around since 2017, but I had to shuttle between so many ventures, so many losses to kind of reach to this point where, okay, things are kind of stable down with the podcast and with whatever work that I'd done, on the side. And it's a good transition also that you kind of move from digital marketing to communities. For somebody who is looking out to grow the audience that way, now you have a phenomenal opportunity to shape a community towards the broader goals of the project. I think that's pretty lit. And just to step back a little here, I want to understand exactly what DIA is all about and how. I mean, like we all know that the Oracle system is kind of a pretty important piece of infrastructure, and Chainlink really dominates the news there. But I want to know more about what DIA is all about as a project and how it kind of differentiates itself from Chainlink as um, as kind of a usable oracle for your clients.
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. So DIA, in one sentence, is a multi-chain data and Oracle platform for Web3, which basically just means what are oracles for those listeners that are not really aware. Oracles are basically companies or protocols that gather data on one side and then push this data on chain. The problem with blockchains is that they're deterministic and they cannot read real world data in a way that like usual Web2 applications can. So this is where DIA comes in. And the difference between our infrastructure of other oracles, such as Chainlink, is that our approach to data sourcing is end-to-end, which means that we deploy scrapers on various centralized and decentralized exchanges and basically gather trading data on a single trade basis from all these exchanges, gather it into a database, apply computation and different methodologies to it based on what the clients need, and then pack this up into like an Oracle product for each dedicated client. So each client gets a dedicated Oracle, which they can customize. And the difference between us and other oracles, or I would say most oracles, is that most oracles get their data sets from premium data providers such as CoinGecko, Kaiko, which basically they source all of this data from different exchanges. They pack them up into packages such as this is the price feed package of top 100 assets, which is all great. You get probably very reliable price feeds, but the app who's integrating these sources, these price feeds, doesn't know where these price feeds are coming from. So what are the sources used to calculate the price feeds for these assets? And this is where DIA kind of is a bit different because we do take the time to really source the data directly. And then basically this allows us not only to offer full customization regarding sources to the app developers, but also to be very fast to deploy on new chains. For one example being EVM Moss, where we deployed our first Oracle or integrated our Oracle structure, I think within 3 hours of the mainnet launch on EVM Moss. At the same time, we also are much more able to cater to we're much more flexible when it comes to needs of the app developers because we can support these long tail assets. So assets that don't have a lot of trading volume or are not listed on big centralized exchanges. Why? Because we do source data directly from all these smaller decentralized exchanges on various blockchains. And we're doing that on 30 plus blockchains. We're doing that from almost 100 different data sources. And we're already supplying data for over 100 depth partners. So just to give you an example, let's say lately Arbitrum has been gaining a lot of popularity, and there have been like a few new decentralized exchanges deployed there, such as like Camelot DEX. On Camelot DEX, there have been listed several new projects and their tokens, which are not traded on any of the centralized exchanges. But because we are very fast to deploy our data scrapers on Camelot, we can now support price feeds for all of the assets that are being traded there, enabling dApp developers in DeFi to integrate these price feeds into their dApps. So I would say that this is definitely our main strength that offers us flexibility. It offers dApp developers flexibility when they are deciding what types of inputs they want to have in for their price feeds, and at the same time enables us to support these long tail assets across different blockchains. And if we're just talking about the price feeds, I also want to kind of share what product categories we do have. The main one, the basic one, is definitely the basic price feeds, such as price feed of Bitcoin, such as price feed of Ethereum, and so on. We also support NFTFi projects by supplying these NFT floor price oracles, where we source data directly from OpenSea, LuxRare, and other NFT marketplaces. We apply certain methodologies, and then we are basically able to determine fair floor prices for these NFT collections, where we can basically ignore the wash trading volume or apply different methodologies that each partner kind of requires. The third kind of product that we have is also this on-chain verifiable randomness, which is used in a lot of blockchain games, new NFT mints, and so on. We have this also deployed on, I think, 10 or even more blockchains. And the latest product that we launched kind of falls into the first category, but has an additional feature to it, is basically the fair price feeds for LSDs. So we've seen a lot of popularity with these liquid stake derivatives, liquid staking platforms lately. And we believe that after this Shanghai hard fork, that liquid staking markets will continue their fast growth. So what we built is basically a product that doesn't only track the prices of these LSDs, such as ST-ETH from Lido, or ST-DOT from Lido, or R-ETH from Rocket Pool, but also takes a look into the collateral ratios of these assets. Or for example, if you want to, how liquid staking works is you basically go to Lido, you stake your Ethereum with Lido, and in return you get ST-ETH, which acts like a liquid, basically a liquid stake token that you can use then in different DeFi protocols, or you can just hold it in your wallets, or you can trade it on different exchanges. But once you do stake your ETH, this basically means a certain quantity of ST-ETH. And what we're kind of tracking on chain is whether these collateral ratios are matching the minted ST-ETH in the circulation. So we believe this is a very important part of the fair pricing of LSDs, because if a certain protocol is under collateralized, then their LSD should not have the same value as the underlying asset. Just take, for example, let's say that Lido only had 50% of collateralization, and they're issuing ST-ETH that should be redeemable one by one with ETH. Basically, the fair price of this of ST-ETH in this case would be 50% lower than the market price of Ethereum, because there is no collateral, and if everybody wants to kind of redeem their ETH back, they're not able to do so. And this is basically the latest product that we've built, and we might build more products to kind of help out, improve transparency within the DeFi space. Sorry for this long intro, DIA. Maybe if you have some additional questions, I'm happy to answer.
No, I think it was great. I think having that sort of context about what DIA does allows us to kind of get into the broader. It's about the why, right? I mean, to understand that, we need to understand what DIA does well. So it's great that the context was there. I understood a lot more about liquid staking from this conversation. It's going to be easy for me to read the next Bankless newsletter now. and but it helps me. I just want to step back and understand this. That all right, you have this. Uh, Correct me if I'm wrong, but the way you kind of aggregate price feeds from these decentralized exchanges, you get it from NFT exchanges, and now LSD. Wow, LSD. These LSD projects as well to be able to kind of uh, to it's kind of much more flexible. It's going straight into a database, and from there the price feeds are being taken and kind of packaged to your clients. But in other oracles, you kind of have packages that are built and that's sent out. Have I got the all right?
Exactly. So if you're a small project, I don't really like to talk about the competition, but mainly there is one oracle deployed for various projects, whereas we always deploy a dedicated oracle for each project that needs it. So yeah, basically what you said is correct.
Okay.
We do source this data directly so that then we can let our customers decide which sources they want to use, which methodologies they want to use, how they want to calculate average price, how they want to look for outliers in the price feeds. So, for example, if one exchange is reporting much higher price than the other, should this be taken into account? Should this be ignored? All of these kind of setups, we're kind of enabling our partners to decide on. Whereas other oracles typically offer one set of these services for free, and everything else I'm not saying it is, but could be somewhat like a premium package for the dApps.
So you offer these sort of decentralized. Sorry to step in here. Well, you offer these sort of dedicated oracles to these clients, and it seems like you've kind of thought well about how you want to like decentralize from packages to kind of much more real time feeds because you have your own dedicated database, you have your own dedicated oracles that's coming in. So it seems like as a team you have it worked out about how to kind of manage your clients that well, and how the whole architecture is going to be for DIA. Help me understand about why the decentralization of the community and the teams, the sort of the development teams or the guilds that kind of constitute your DAO. Why is that important for a project when you compare it with other oracles where there's like a centralized team that's kind of being involved there? Why is the decentralization of the community important in this aspect?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And actually, DIA has been set up as a DAO since the inception in 2020. We actually have a legal incorporated DAO registered in Switzerland, Zug. So the infrastructure has always been kind of meant to be run in a decentralized way. But this is basically a slow progress. What I mean by that is the team's vision was that the product should be built with the community and for the community, because this is what the basic ideology of crypto is, and we're kind of trying to build on top of that. That being said, because we're a B2B company, we don't really produce tools or software for retail users to use. It's very hard to actually build your community. And the easiest way to build a community as a B2B company is basically to have contributors who are also community members to join the team, to help us build the product, to understand the product, to give recommendations, to voice their opinions, to vote on certain changes, and basically develop this product along with the builders from the crypto space. So that's why we started off as like the only vertical that we actually used the community for was the development vertical. So for building data scrapers, for creating this technical documentation, for building certain monitoring software and so on. But in the last year, before I joined, the team decided to kind of expand this to all product verticals, not just product verticals, but company verticals, such as content creation, marketing, growth, business development, design operations. Why? Because this basically enables you to scale on a much higher level. Just imagine that for everything that for every department, you have to hire someone who's leading the department, someone who's kind of the managing the department, and then someone who's operating the department. This creates like this big, almost a corporation-like structure where they're not only high costs, but it also takes a lot longer to really develop all the processes, to really manage the people. Then you need to have an office. If you don't have an office, then you have to provide all this necessary equipment for people. And what we kind of realized is that crypto is a very cyclical thing. So like we have 2 years of extreme growth, of like a lot of innovation happening, but then we have 2 years where not really much is happening, where all crypto companies are just trying to stay afloat, trying to continue building in the bear market, and trying to kind of get ready for the next bull market. And we believe that the DAO structure is a perfect structure to do something like that, because you basically work on a bounty to bounty basis. So when we have a need for something, or when we want to launch a new project, we can simply launch this project via our DIA DAO community. We select the most appropriate people to work on this project, and then we have a dedicated team for the project. But their result, or their, let's say, reward is driven by the result. So basically, if they do provide the result that we kind of agreed on in advance, they will get the reward that they deserve. But if the work is not done in a way that it should be, then the reward is either slashed or not given. So this kind of gives us more flexibility when it comes to doing all these kind of smaller new projects, but also gives us much higher connection to the actual community, because now we have people who have been building with us, who have been writing content for us, who have been helping us update our website, managing the community, producing content for Twitter and so on. Then now we have like over 700 contributors that know exactly what DIA is doing. They understand our product. They understand kind of our vision, or like the direction we're trying to go to. And even though most of them are not active contributors on a monthly basis, they're active community members that support DIA, because they are a part of what we're kind of building. And I think this is kind of the main thing that our founders and all of our community has in common, is this vision of a decentralized space, which I think maybe lastly is very, very important when it comes to data, because you want data to be verified by let's say third-party sources, and you don't want the data to be too centralized, because if data is too centralized, then basically what you're seeing, what the data that we push out, what you're seeing could be basically somewhat affected by this centralized entity that it's owning this data. And we actually want this data to be not tampered with, and we should have like this zero knowledge proof that this was not tampered with. So basically the biggest next step that we're doing right now is how we can achieve this decentralization in our product stack or our product infrastructure in this year, so that the whole journey of data is completely decentralized and doesn't rely on trusting the DIA as a company or organization. So on one side, we have this community building DAO, which will help us develop everything that we need to make this happen and to grow the community. And on the other side, we have another kind of initiative, which is really completing the decentralization of the infrastructure of the data journey that we provide.
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack there. One is that it's kind of awesome to see that you were thinking of making it into a formal DAO ever since inception, and you have kind of incorporated it well enough since that point. And you've understood the markets quite well, and you've kind of oriented contributions around that aspect as well. what was something that was purely development oriented for bounties has now slowly transitioned into something that's also involving the community at the architecture, at the community development level, also allowing you to scale your operations quite well. And that's kind of a logical step for somebody who's in crypto, where you're kind of tailoring to clients and teams that's globally scattered. And what I want to understand at this point is, uh, while you have that sort of transitions where uh, what was once development oriented has now transitioned into community development, has transitioned into broader non-tech aspects, and then going forward you may see a full decentralization. How is that pain points, I mean, that whole growing pains that come with that, could you walk us through that journey, about what was it like at, since the start of having to incorporate the community without the right tools, or how are you kind of building that sort of structures that allow for seamless contribution, and also what's the sort of thinking and inspiration that's helped you craft like a smooth onboarding and a smooth community for DIA?
Yeah, I think it's an excellent question. That I think every DAO operator you ask will provide a different answer. But for us, yeah, the research part, or like the inspiration part. So which DAO we want to copy, which structure do we want to copy, what's the best that is on the market. The problem was that um, there's still not many DAOs out there. I mean, there are a lot of DAOs, but well-structured DAOs with a lot of members, with very structured kind of work streams, are very rare to find. And when we were doing that a year ago, it was even less. Also, there were not many DAO management platforms available. But what we could do is basically we did source inspirations from giants like MakerDAO, Aragon DAO, Bankless DAO, and basically checked which platforms do they use, which tools do they use for community management, what product verticals do they have within the DAO, what platforms do they use for voting, what platforms do they use for communication, and so on. So basically, that led to us having a lot of these discovery calls with different DAO tooling platforms, or even Web3 tooling platforms. And in the end, we kind of decided to choose DWork. So DWork is a tool basically very similar to Trello or Asana in Web2, but it's kind of focusing on Web3 and DAO specifically. DWork basically enables you to push to create different verticals, or we call them guilds. So we have this onboarding guild, copywriting guild, design guild, business development guild, operations guild, growth and promo guild, tech guild, and I think HR guild. I'm not sure if I forgot one or not, but it's not that relevant. But it does enable you to create these kind of teams or sub teams, and then within this each guild or each team, you can push out different bounties that you assign a certain reward to. Another great feature of DWork as well is that it combines contributors and DAOs in one place. So when you go to DWork, you can easily check the most popular DAOs on DWork as a contributor, but also as a DAO, you can go and you can check the most active contributors on DWork, and then basically try to find a way to reach out to them. So we decided to use DWork. We tried a few kind of infrastructure setups in the beginning. We tested them out. We had like probably 2 or 3 month probation period where we just onboarded a very kind of really the most active community members from DIA, trying to get their feedback of what's working, what's not, how do we kind of integrate with other apps, and so on. So after that, we kind of decided to use Discord as the main communication channel. DWork has this feature where you can basically integrate with Discord, so that when a new task is created, no new bounty is created, or when it's assigned to someone, it does create a dedicated channel within the Discord group, which means that It does enable you to easily communicate with a contributor once a certain bounty is set up or a certain contributor is assigned to this bounty. So this is kind of like this work DAO structure that we decided to have. And then I guess the next big step, which was a really important one, and we didn't know it's a big problem before we actually started doing this, is the onboarding process, right? First, we actually said, yeah, let's get as many people as onboarded as possible, and then we'll see who are really the people that are great contributors, who have certain skill sets that others don't have, and so on. But with a proper onboarding system, you onboard people, but you don't know what their skills actually are. I mean, we did have this kind of application form which they had to fill, but then you would just get their CVs or like claimed claimed experiences, working experiences. But since we're in crypto, we kind of decided, okay, that's not enough. Like anybody can say, I worked for Microsoft for 10 years and I built this, and this. But the reality is that they didn't, right? And we're not here to really verify this. We're here to actually reward you or give you some bounties if you have some certain skills that we're looking for. So what we did is we basically created this bespoke onboarding system for each of the guilds, so each teams. So just to give you an example, for copywriting guild, any new contributor, in order to get onboarded and get access to all the articles that were needed to be written, they had to go through this onboarding process where they had to write an article about what is DIA. This article or this submission gave us a lot of information. It gave us information about, okay, does this person know how to write? Do they have a great writing skill? Do they have good English? So do they speak English well enough to become a writers? Do they understand what DIA is? Are they copy pasting content or they're using kind of their own words? Is this being done by an AI? All of these things we are able to see through this kind of onboarding process. And at the same time, we decided to kind of create these leadership roles where we had a leader from the DIA Score team. We appointed a leader for each of these DAO guilds. So, for example, a content manager at DIA is also copywriting guild leader of the copywriting guild. Me, as like a marketing community, I am the lead of the growth and promo guild at DIA DAO, and so on. So this kind of gave us opportunity to let people finish up this onboarding bounties, but then just quickly through reading this onboarding bounty result or whatever work they did, I was able to see, and the others were able to see, who really are the people that we can kind of give bounties to. So, and this is how the process started. We were onboarding a lot of people. We kind of also noticed that this was kind of like this is where most of the congestion also happened, because we got like 10, 15, 20 applications per day for copywriting guild, for the design guild. And just reading through these articles and then basically providing feedback to these contributors was a very timely job. So we almost immediately also onboarded someone from the community who had experience in lecturing and editing content. So that guy actually became like our onboarding reviewer, and he would basically do this first review of the onboarding tasks and then forward those that were the most prospective ones, forward those to the core team members so that we could kind of, or to the guild leaders, so that we would have an easier job of onboarding people. And yeah, I think this was kind of like the biggest challenge that we saw, and I think this is still a challenge, how to do this onboarding to take as little time as possible for the team, but to provide as much information as possible for the team to be able to identify who are the contributors that should be getting more attention than others.
No, I kind of see that, I mean, when you have like an entire global community that's kind of focused towards a project, you kind of get all kinds of different actors coming in, some who may be genuinely caring about the project, and some who may be kind of looking to scam people out of money and, just waste time. And in that regard, the sort of onboarding process that you've talked about also kind of gives us an kind of throws light on the sort of challenges that comes that way. Uh, and the way I see with the sort of work that I've kind of created, it's oriented towards a bounty structure built on top of D work, where there's proper communication channels done through Discord for broader community engagement, and that's great. You kind of have an idea of who are all great people, also from the sort of filters that you keep at each stage across operations, and you have like a core team member along with some person who's kind of pretty good within the community to kind of step in at certain points. So those are all pretty neat stages to kind of involve the community at. But what I want to understand at this point is, uh, you take a look at DAOs or communities. I mean, most DAOs in this space are, I mean, D knows DAOs in name only. But you take a look at, your aspiration to kind of make DIA into a proper DAO. It requires that the community also gets the opportunity to shape the direction of where DIA is actually headed in terms of architecture, in terms of supporting use cases, in terms of orienting the team towards that. Now, at the same time, you have the core teams, goals, the way they do things, and their kind of way in which their culture and all of that. And when you have this sort of, I wouldn't want to call it conflict, because it's not like there, but there's like some sort of there are two parties here. So how do you kind of bridge that gap? Because you're looking to formally transition this into a DAO where the community gets that sort of control over these things. What were the sort of challenges that you saw with the core team's culture and the other aspect, the community also starting to get this sort of involvement with the operations, in terms of goals hit, in terms of cultural differences? Would love to understand what were the pros, what great things came out of it, and what are the challenges that you faced when it comes to maintaining that culture and bridging the gap between the core team and the community.
How are we kind of trying to fit our vision and our narratives to the wider community? It's basically by having this regular communication with them. So we do have these bi-weekly community calls where we go through everything we did in the past 2 weeks. We always have this open Q&A session in the end. We are doing monthly AMAs with the core team members in our Telegram. We're doing a lot of posted AMAs within other communities. And we always produce this kind of monthly recaps, weekly recaps, and basically just share all the latest developments and achievements with our community in various channels. Yeah.
I think that it's great, that see, if I don't know how DAO governance is going to evolve better, but at least when it comes to ideas itself, I like the concept of optimized democracy. You take a look at DAOs today, uh, especially even the majors, take Aave, take a lot of the other DAOs as well. When the bear market hits, looking at the existing concept of one token, one vote, with this existing system, during a bear market, they're not able to hit quorum. They're not able to hit a certain perimeter of vote achieved. That's the sort of problems that a massive community like Aave is facing. Even though, I mean, when you talk about their Discord numbers, they have like 60,000 members or huge followings, But when it has to hit like a threshold of Aave votes, they can't even hit that. They can't even hit their own targets that way. So what is the point of having people who are having that token but don't really care enough to to use their power to shape the direction of Aave? When you have that power, you should be able to use it, but people
So yeah,
just care a lot.
yeah, there's something
Sorry,
interesting. Maybe I can interrupt you with that.
please, please,
Is that
please.
I mean, currently we do have various DAO votes happening for DIA DAO as well. Mainly, those are being used for validating new data sources for the DIA platform. So let's say we want to integrate our infrastructure with Binance. We would first basically create a DAO proposal saying, hey, we want to add Binance as a new data source. And then we put this as a vote on Snapshot. We are also seeing that there is a growth in voting and growth in the number of people voting, but it's very difficult to really to attract your token holders to vote on these changes. So something really cool happened. We have this yearly DAO DIA token treasury unlock, where I think 10% of our token supply gets released every year. And we do kind of create this core team proposal to how these DIA tokens will be used for development, for growth, and so on. But then we kind of leave 2-week or 1-month period where community is able to kind of propose their own ideas of how the token should be used. And this year, we actually received a community proposal that said, what if we take 10% of these released DIA tokens and we give them as an airdrop to anyone who voted for any of the DIA DAO proposals in 2022? And of course, we said, yeah, wow, this is a great idea. Let's put this for a vote. And this actually got outvoted. This actually outvoted the core team proposal. And we were happy to do that because we do believe that rewarding the voters in some way should be very important, especially because we don't offer any staking or anything for a token. We said, okay, let's reward those people who have been busy using our token to vote on these changes, helping us govern, helping us confirm all these kind of new sources. So we did that. And immediately after this proposal was accepted, the number of voters increased a lot because why? People are now expecting this airdrop to also happen next year and then the next year. And this is kind of some of the initiatives that help drive this voting up. Whereas we don't know if this airdrop is going to happen next year. It's actually up to the community to propose and up to the community to vote for this proposal as well. But just maybe giving my side of the story here. Whereas I started voting for these proposals somewhere mid last year. So after I joined the team, I did buy some DIA tokens just to kind of have some skin in the game and so on. And I did receive this airdrop, and this airdrop was like 30% of all of my DIA stacks. So basically, by voting on this, it provides much higher APY than you would get in most of the staking platforms or staking protocols. And this is definitely something that's very interesting, but it's not something we want to really promote too much publicly, because then what happens is people will buy the token, they will vote just so they can get the airdrop, which again is not really the vision that we have. We actually want to have people who believe in us to buy the token and then use this token to voice their opinions. So yeah, I do agree what you said about Aave and others. And in general, I think DAOs are still quite inefficient structures for decision making. But at the same time, they're very efficient for scaling the whatever production or whatever product companies are building. And then at the same time, Snapshot already has all these different strategies that DAOs can use. For example, what you can do is you can assign voting power to a certain NFT. So let's say we want to give our 50 most active community members extra voting rights. We can create NFTs. We can give them these NFTs. Then we can create a strategy in Snapshot using these NFTs would generate, let's say, 1,000 DIA voting power. And then without those people having DIA tokens, they can actually go and they can vote for the proposals on Snapshot, because we do value their opinion, but we don't want to force them into buying the tokens on open market. And at the same time, we don't have to give them the tokens, which kind of dilutes the value of the tokens if you're just always using your token to reward certain actions. And this is also why we're using ETH or USDC for any bounties that we produce. We don't pay out DIA tokens, but we do pay out tokens such as ETH or USDC.
I think it's phenomenal that you actually pay out your voters through DIA and all of that. I just had a similar conversation with Tommy Olofsson in our past episode where I pointed out that why isn't this experiment being tried out to drive up engagement in terms of voting? And you're practically the first project that I'm speaking to that's trying it out actively. So your observation that it's kind of driven up the voting, it's kind of a good positive there. And I am now much more intrigued to keep track of what's going on in terms of governance, because in terms of incentivized voting, you're the first that's coming into our circle that way. And I'll be keeping a great lookout that way. But then your point also makes sense that people will just vote for the heck of it. How do you have people who are voting with DIA's goals first and making that vote happen rather than, okay, I'm getting paid for that? And I think what could be like a great balancer is if you take a look at Snapshot, you now have the opportunity to post a comment while you make the vote. That's kind of like an on-chain message, So what if we could have like a mix of AI along with Snapshot, where if you could just train the AI to learn, okay, is this vote put in the best interest of DIA or not? And we have this filter where voters should post exactly why they made that vote happen, and when that vote goes out, and if the AI is just like kind of neutral, could either way, yes or no, it's fine, as long as it's done in the best interest of DIA. Of DIA, the AI should be able to make a call on whether that voter should be rewarded or not. I think that could be like a phenomenal thought experiment that could go into deciding, how this sort of decentralized governance could play out. It just kind of takes away a lot of the verification of these votes from the community as well, and you have someone neutral. I mean, this is just off the top of my head from this conversation. I'm sure that with your community and the broader ecosystem, a lot of great ideas could be popping out of this. And what I want to understand at this point is, it's great that you kind of have incentivized voting. I'm also kind of curious to see. You mentioned that having this core team of people that's aligned with DIA is kind of having a greater role. But at the same time, a lot of questions have always come about the bounty structure in general. I mean, we've kind of heard from other communities and things like that the contributors don't like the bounty structure. It's very hard to keep track of bounties when there are like 100, 200 people, and it kind of leads to like a mercenary culture. There's not a lot of loyalty there. But your sentiment about it says otherwise. So on one hand, you're creating this incentivized voting, you're creating this bounty structure. How has the engagement been in terms of creating this loyal and dedicated bunch of people, and how has it improved productivity compared to having a core team? I'm speaking, from the point of view about decentralizing the team. If a project has to look at decentralizing it, has your approach worked or not? It's just out of that angle I'm kind of asking.
Yeah, that's also a great question. So I think we initially had some, I wouldn't say problems, but challenges, because most of the contributors that first came to DIA DAO, they were also contributors in other DAOs. And some other DAOs are basically pure DAOs, as we call them. They have open treasury, and they have these roles instead of bounties, which we kind of envisioned to do at some point. But we said, yeah, let's first see who is able to fit into a certain role, and then let's see what roles do we actually need. Let's not create roles just for the sake of DAO members having their positions, because this becomes unsustainable. Just imagine that every role that you add adds to the regular cost that you will have to eat up every month, and it really affects the burn rate that the company has. The problem with Oracle is that it's a non-revenue business model so far, which means that most of the oracles are not earning any money by providing these Oracle services. Mostly, we have treasuries from our ICOs or from VC funded organizations. So the problem here was not to, the idea was to kind of push out bounties and projects according to the needs that the core team has. So basically, the work DAO acts as like a support system for the core team. But of course, sometimes the support system and the core team kind of get intermingled when we have these kind of bigger projects where we basically work together on those. They basically fit a role within this project. One example being, once we kind of started this DAO, we said, okay, we have our own DIA Twitter profile, but we also need a Twitter profile that is the voice of the DIA DAO community. So we created DIA Community Hub on Twitter, which now I think almost passed 1,500 followers in the last 3 or 4 or 5 months, which I think is great. But all the content produced there comes from our DIA contributors. So DIA DAO contributors. We don't produce any of the content ourselves. They do kind of take a look at what do we do with the DIA account, and then they kind of try to support these initiatives. But now we've built a persona or like a profile that doesn't just support DIA, but also provides a lot of educational content on how do decentralized exchanges work, what are different kinds of stable coins, deep dives into different ecosystems such as Arbitrum, Metis DAO, and so on. So they do produce all these sorts of content, and this was kind of derived by creating this DIA DAO structure. On the same side, we have community moderation done by our community members, and all the research that we do, all of these kind of big content pieces that we do, those are all basically created by our DAO contributors. Sorry, I got a bit sidetracked. What was the original question?
I mean, for teams that are looking to progressively decentralize, just taking a look at the existing engagement and all of that, just wanting to understand how has it worked out for you in terms of achieving your goals and all of that.
Yeah, so initially we were kind of afraid because there was a pressure on us. Why we're just doing this as bounties? Why we're not doing this as other DAOs? But yeah, as I previously mentioned, we just had to kind of really clearly communicate this with the community that we're taking things slowly. We just launched the DAO in this kind of scope in June last year, so it's not even been a year. And basically, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We are kind of aware of all the risks that DAOs can create through this governance process. So we said, okay, look, what we do now is we created the infrastructure. We onboarded a lot of members, and now we're focusing on the bounties that kind of represent the main initiatives that we're kind of doing or looking after. And once we got this kind of expectations settled down, I think things got much easier because there was not a pressure on the team to push a new bounty for each guild every day or every week, but basically to focus. So we kind of focus on the strategy, on the bigger picture, and then based on the bigger picture, we decide what the goals are. And then based on the goals, we form projects, or let's say list of tasks that need to be completed in order for these goals to be achieved. And then based on these goals, we create a project, which we then kind of populate with different DAO contributors in order to complete. And I think this is the structure that we have. But going forward, we will definitely try to get more and more these 4 roles for different DAO members. But as I said, at the moment, it forces you to scale too fast. So if we were to appoint 10 people to regular positions now, but we are still like, we have like 1 or 2 years of really extreme bear market ahead, we would be burning much more money than we would need, actually, because also in the bear market, as you know, people are not as susceptible of the crypto markets at all. The content that you produce gets seen by much less people. There's not much effect of doing these paid campaigns, and also the VCs and other funding institutions are not really funding too many projects, which means that there are not too many potential clients coming into our pipeline as well. So we're kind of aware of the market situation right now. We're not sure whether we're still in the bear market or we're kind of out of it. But given the macroeconomic outlook, we do believe that there is still some pain ahead of the markets, and this is why we're kind of decided to build, to do a lot of valuable content, to build new products, but basically to build this infrastructure so that we're able to scale when things really start to move.
So, Anjay, I think that you made a very valid point, that most DAOs kind of made the mistake of when they scale their contributor base a lot, and that is their DAOs scale too fast. And it just kind of leads to, without an understanding of what your runway is going to be, and you kind of have so much people, considering how cyclical the market is going to be, you just kind of lead to a problem where you lose out on money fast. Is when you have too many contributors, then the morale is just going to go sinking faster than the Titanic did, And looking at the existing last year's market as well, a lot of major DAOs went through tremendous layoffs before Luna even crashed, before FTX, Before all of these things happened, most of these DeFi protocols started having major issues and just laid off a lot of people. For me, that was like a signal that bear markets was coming way before even FTX happened. Because your point was right, because they scaled too fast, didn't have that sort of runway, and really had to lay off a lot of people. And that's something teams looking to decentralize should keep that in mind.
And I think, I think, sorry to interrupt, but I think this is a very real problem in not just in crypto, but let's just take a look at all the tech companies that, like, starting from 2018 or let's say 2020, like all these venture capital funds were funding any project that had some idea about AI or like quick delivery or quick commerce or whatever was trending at that time. These companies were forced by millions and millions of dollars to grow on an exponential level. But what happened then in 2021 and 2022? They basically started to lay off people because why? During this bull market, even in stocks, they were hiring thousands and thousands of people. But I think if you have some experience working for a small startup, you realize that you don't really need a lot of people if you have like a digital product. Of course, if you have something that requires logistics or something that it's happening in real life, you do need people on the ground doing this operational stuff. But if you're a digital company, you can always decide whether to have this organic growth or to really have this hyper-fueled growth where you basically just throw money in marketing, hire more people to create more content, and then basically just do everything that you can at the same time. But what happens as soon as these venture capital funds say, hey, you know what, we're not doing another round. I think you had enough. It's now time to become profitable. And then you have to look within your company, and you have to realize that, wow, we have like 70% of people who we don't even know what they're doing. Like, we have too many people for that amount of work. And this is also why, like, Coinbase laid off thousands of people, Google laid off thousands of people, Facebook laid off thousands of people, is because it was uncontrolled growth. And yeah, we're just kind of aware of all these things. We know that by doing this fast growth, we could burn part of our treasury much faster, and we could achieve a much higher growth. But we never know what's going to happen tomorrow, what new product idea we have tomorrow, or how the market will switch. So we prefer to take things slowly, organically, and build teams step by step. And I think the achievement that we made to build a DAO community with over 700 members in less than 1 year, by not doing any promotions, any paid promotions or anything, I think that's an amazing result on its own. So I'm happy that we didn't go create too many roles or going to this too fast, because then you're kind of trapped into what you're doing and you just have to continue doing it. Whereas now we have all this flexibility to really jump on new trends, to build new products, and to create projects that are helping us right now, not something that would help us when the bull market comes.
I mean, that's pretty. I mean, how do I put it? Like a pragmatic advice there. That while it's okay to be a DAO, but when you're also kind of functioning as this hybrid, or when you're like fully decentralized, you can't ignore the fundamentals of your having your runway set and of having like an aligned or how do you put it, that sort of nimble teams working through each form of the bear market or the bull market. And that is something that every team that's either looking to progressively decentralize or is decentralized from the start should kind of keep that in mind as they continue to operate and kind of manage their teams going forward. And with that, the way proposals are kind of shaped in terms of you look at the information that's given out, it's kind of focused more on the idea, it's focused more on how the proposal is shaped for that particular idea. But then if the community was not oriented around the fundamentals of DIA, if information is given on what exactly is the runway looking like, and some sort of forecasting ability is made mandatory, it just allows for the community to shape their thinking better around the vote, rather than the sort of narrow-minded, like a lack of foresight when it comes to the proposals that kind of affected a lot of these DAOs, where that led to all these layoffs in the first place. If that sort of filters could be kept, it could be pretty insane. And with that, this conversation was kind of a very good. How do I put it? Like for me personally, I really understood a lot about the sort of challenges that came when you were looking to progressively decentralize this whole thing. I think teams going forward also will kind of look at this conversation from your side, Anjay, and really find it enlightening. I enjoyed this conversation a lot. Thank you so much for coming in and making this wonderful conversation happen. You know, the sort of insights that you gave out was pretty fantastic, and I am really intrigued to see what the DIA project has ahead and the wonderful community that they've shaped up. Do let the community know right now, Anjay, about what we can expect from DIA going forward, what we can expect from you going forward, and how can people keep track of all these things?
Yeah, thank you. And really thanks for inviting me here. I really enjoyed the conversation as well. So I hope that with my insights, I was able to kind of ease up the process of building a DAO, building a community for anyone who's listening this. Also note that my DMs are always open. I'm happy to chat with any new projects or new DAOs that are coming up. Share some details. Of course, some things are we cannot share, but I think for these general ideas, I'm always very happy to share. And when it comes to DIA and us growing forward, we do have a few products set up that I think will be quite interesting for the DeFi space. I wouldn't really talk about it too much now. Just follow us on Twitter. Our handle is DIA Data _org. And also follow DIA Community Hub, our DIA DAO contributor profile. Yeah, as I said, anyone that wants to reach out or wants to join the DIA DAO is welcome to do so. We're currently not focusing too much on onboarding new members. As I said, we already have 700, but note that I do check. I personally check every application that we get, and I make sure that those that really apply with a specific set skills are always onboarded in a timely manner, and they do get responsibilities within the DAO. So going forward, we'll focus on building new products, further decentralizing our infrastructure, and definitely we're working on giving the people more voice, more voting rights, but leading this decentralization in a way that will protect the foundation that we've built, and making sure that the people who have the power are people who do understand it and basically have the same kind of vision that we do.